Tuesday, November 3rd. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15. We have openings on several committees. Please contact the Selectmen's office for a listing and application. And donations to the food pantry can be made at the Council on Aging or the Public Library. Please stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment for our community prayer. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we've been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen. And now we'll have a public comment period. This is a 10-minute period in which citizens can come to the table, and we'd like to give each individual 3 minutes so that we can hear as many people as we can during that time. Was there anybody that wanted to address the board? Please come forward. We just ask that you provide your name and address.
Nancy Ryan, 180 Tremont Street, and I am here once again for the adopted nursing home. And Mary Ann Prescott, she had started this 3 years ago. Sadly, because of health reasons, she can't continue it, so I will be continuing it. And we're going to have the nursing homes, the life care, and the golden living. We're going to do it this year, December 20th. We have the Gatra bus comes and collects all the gifts, drops them off. The 15th, I think, is going to be the end when we want all the gifts in. So we had a huge response last year, so we're hoping again this year that we're going to be able to carry on and do it again. Mm-hmm. And then also we're going to do the Christmas caroling again this year.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was so much fun last year.
Did Helen go with you last year?
Helen, I've already talked to Helen.
I wasn't there. There was an elf there, but I wasn't.
The costume was available. Helen's volunteering.
Was Helen dressed as an elf last year doing the singing?
Yes.
She was. Dick and I were there as witnesses.
Yeah.
As witnesses? Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're
Sarah
witnesses.
was there.
Are there
Was
are there photographs?
We met
Yes.
Santa.
I think there's probably,
And what day will that be taking place?
Well, I was going to do it the 20th, but then I realized that that's a Patriots game. I don't want to lose anybody.
The 15th, you said?
Well, I'm thinking maybe the day before. The 18th is we'll be dropping off the gifts. I'm thinking of doing it Saturday the 19th
That would be-
instead of the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be
So
great.
if
No,
anybody...
Saturday's the 21st, isn't it?
No, remember, because Saturday was going to be the 19th.
Oh, December. I'm thinking November.
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
in December.
Yep, okay.
Yeah. And,
We do need a Santa, right, Nancy?
pardon?
We need a Santa volunteer?
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason last year, you couldn't do it. I forget, you had something else to do?
I guess I'm doing it this year. So you'll confirm that date with all of us, so that I know all the members of the board would like to be there if at all possible.
Yes, yeah.
I was there last year.
There, everyone?
Yeah, three of us,
Yeah,
three of them
unfortunately,
were
I had
there
to work,
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, we
That was
had-
the only reason, though.
We had a quorum there last.
No, I did. Helen has issues with Santa, so it's just sometimes we like to.
I love Christmas.
I know, yeah.
Best time of
And
year.
that worked out.
There's a
well.
restraining order. She has to stay over 100 feet away from Santa at all times.
We've invited you.
Anyway, so, yeah, let's talk, and I'd be glad to do it.
Yeah, and what's great is, once again, Stephanie Clardy, the Girl Scout leader. She's got all the Girl Scouts involved, and they're gonna come caroling. I've already-
What time of day do you normally do it?
I don't know, I have to talk to the nursing home, I have to work with their schedule. So, and I also, this year, I have somebody who wants to volunteer. We're not open too many hours at the COA, so sometimes it's hard to drop the gifts off, so I have somebody who will volunteer to go out to get the gifts if, you know, they can't do it within the hours that the COA is open. So that's kind of it.
All right, so, but for members of the public that would like to contribute to this, and essentially what this is the Carver COA is adopting 2 nursing homes, the Life Care Center of Plymouth and Golden Living, which is also in Plymouth, right?
Sure, yes.
And if they could drop off gifts at the Carver Council on Aging between now and November 15th, or December 15th?
December, yes.
Now and December 15th, right to the Council on Aging, anytime between 9 and 12, Monday through Friday.
9 and 1.
9 and 1, Monday through Friday. Puzzle books, large print if possible, for those of us that appreciate large print these days. Word search books, personal care items, snacks or candy.
Yes, and we asked to wrap and to put
Oh,
down-
and have them wrapped.
Yeah, and to have them
And
wrapped.
what's in them? What's in the,
Well, whether it's male or female,
okay,
just so. that-
male or female, and then possibly even say what it is, just so you know. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just a little sticky note on the outside with what it is and male or female.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
so-
probably especially since if there's candy, there might be people that
Yeah, because, right,
couldn't eat
they,
candy.
so, just a sticky note on there saying if it's for a man or a woman and what it is, so that, again, as Sarah said, some people aren't supposed to have candy, so.
Right.
We ran into that once.
We ran,
We had to take it out of the,
We kinda caught
Right,
hell.
but,
eating the candy canes, and we had to run and grab them out of their mouths.
but we didn't hear of any setbacks, so maybe it's a good idea to sneak in.
All right, that's great. Then, thank you very much to you and everyone else that's helping to do this. It's a great idea.
And one other thing, just really quickly, I had filled out an application for the tax relief committee,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know whatever happened to it. Yeah, because, no, I dropped it off. I don't know the woman's name that works on Monday. And Michelle had called me back again because they hadn't come up with the title yet. And, for a couple of meetings, they were saying that they had 2 applications.
Well, now we know we have a third, or we're gonna get a third.
great.
From somebody else tonight, so all of
Right.
a sudden, I think you're gonna have 4 people.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think we might have 5.
5, yeah,
5.
good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ellen Blanchard.
And Ellen's gonna be in advisory capacity, I believe. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else that wanted to speak to the board tonight during citizen participation? There being none, we now have an applicant for the Tax Relief Study Committee, Albert Winters. Albert, please step forward and, I guess, repeat your name and tell us where you live.
I'm Al Winters, and I live at 36 Melanie in Meadow Woods.
And you'd like to join this committee? You're obviously familiar with what our purpose is and what we're going to try to do?
Yes, I was in the office asking about the impact of the school project on the taxes for people in manufactured homes and whatever. And I learned of the committee, and it just seemed appropriate that people who are on fixed incomes, and which means very limited in the most cases, should have a voice. Tax relief doesn't mean tax elimination. We understand that everyone shares. It's a question, can people do something to ease the burden or whatever? And it seems like this committee is there to explore this sort of thing. I think there's enough people, there's probably over 1,000 people in town who are in that situation, and for the most part, they're on very limited income. And there really isn't another alternative to of where to go to lower one's housing cost, other than being homeless or going into town housing, which really isn't possible with 1,000 people. So, I mean, this just seems like there should be some representation of these people to see what can be done.
Great, well, thank you. And what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Promise Bill that we're going to have a meeting before he leaves, so that...
Can I speak to Albert? We're coming down, Albert, the school building committee on the 9th to visit you folks.
Yes.
Yep, so hope to see you there.
Okay. We're all set for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
That'll be good, Dick. Thank you very much
thanks.
for offering to do that.
Well, no, I'm bringing town administrator with us. He's the numbers man.
Talk on the phone.
Yes, we did. Thank you. That was very good. Powerful.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the town administrator update.
Let's see.
The first item is the update from the police chief on the incident that happened at the elementary school that turned out to be a drill.
Yes, if I could ask the police chief to come up here, Chief Dufley. I've asked Chief Dufley to come in and just give a couple-minute update on what happened last week. I want to hit a couple points before he speaks. One is that we did receive some calls and some requests as to what was going on, and obviously during any type of a public safety event, there's really no comment that we can provide during a situation. But I think the key point that came out of this, there's two. One is that in the age of social media, people can have one little bit of information and that can grow into a full-grown crisis. And I just caution the public, and I'm sure the chief's going to mention this too, is just beware that when things go out, if you don't have the full story, people can panic unnecessarily for incidents, and I think we just all need to be cautious of that when we're reading things on Facebook, and they're happening, instantaneously where you don't have the full picture. The second, and I think that this demonstrates the chief's leadership and his support staff, is this incident occurred while he was at a training session out of state. And the chief and I were on the phone throughout the day during the whole incident, and he had moment by moment information as to what was happening and was sharing that back and forth with myself and other key people to make sure things were moving. So the system, even when the chief is out of town, still fully works, and I think he and his team deserve a lot of credit for that. And obviously, whenever you have a situation, one can always learn of certain things that could be done to improve the next time that happens. So this turned out to be a learning experience. So with that, Chief, I'll turn it back over to you, and I know you can't get into too much detail, but again, we're just dealing with a 30,000-foot level at this point.
Thank you, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, before I start, I'll talk to you a little bit about, you might be able to see that I haven't shaved in a couple of days, and that's not because I'm lazy, but our department has started this campaign No Shave November to raise money for cancer awareness, so that's why I look like this. I was told just before I came up here it looked like dirt, so
It'll get better, Chief.
anybody wants to make donations, we do have a link to the page on Facebook, so you can.
To be honest, I think it's an improvement.
Thank you. And I'm sure you'll look good as Santa Claus too.
Mark,
I'm not
can you speak
Santa.
a little louder, because some of the audience can't hear?
Sure. Sorry. That better? Okay. As many of you are aware, on Monday, October 26th, a situation occurred over at the school that resulted in a stay-in-place order within the elementary school, as well as a response by the Carver Police Department. School resource officer, along with members of our department, members of the Mass State Police, and members of the the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office, helped out in that situation. And they worked hand in hand with the school officials to ensure the safety of the children, teachers, and staff within the building. A thorough search of the building was was performed and the building was cleared. Nothing was found. Once the building was deemed safe, Officer Mello conducted an investigation into that initial report. And after viewing video recordings and interviewing those involved, he was able to determine that it was just a case of mistaken identity, which was great. So while everybody breathed a sigh of relief, the kids were actually in no danger. The event proved to be an excellent test of our ability to respond to such situations. Over the past few years, we've worked with the school department to increase our training and improve our protocols for dealing with just such a situation as was reported to have happened. The lockdown drills we've conducted in the past, as well as this actual event that we had on Monday, allowed us to review our procedures and improve upon them. And as always, we remain committed to the safety of the citizens of Carver, and we're going to do everything we can with that. I got to say that I'm very proud of the officers and the teachers, the school administrators that responded to this call. As Mr. Milanowski pointed out, I was away, but we've set some excellent procedures in place. They followed them and they worked. In any situation like that, we can always find ways to improve, and we've identified a few situations, a few key points that we can improve on, and we've begun on that. I worked with the school this morning with Officer Mello and Principal Maestas. We ran through a couple of drills just for practice again, and they went flawlessly. And we're going to meeting next week, November 13th, myself, the superintendent, fire chief, EMS director, to talk about we had this meeting planned before this happened, but again, to talk about our current and our future plans to deal with emergencies like this. And we've made it a key priority over the past few years after what happened in Sandy Hook and what's happened around the country to make sure that our training is top notch and up to par for just such a situation. This was tested Monday, and thank God it didn't turn out to be a real event, but everything worked very well. And like I said, we use the situation to learn and improve, and we'll continue to do that. But you can be very proud of all your public safety people and the school people that work together to make sure that situation did not get out of hand. The one key point that Michael mentioned too was that in this day and age of cell phone cameras and Facebook and everything else, it's very easy for people to take videos or take pictures and put them out there. And I'm not against that. We live in an open world, and you can videotape us and take pictures of us anytime you want. But sometimes having that information out at a moment's notice, like Mr. Milanowski mentioned, is not always beneficial to the situation that's happening at the time, and certainly can put those responding and those within the building at more risk than it helps. So again, no anybody that's out there, you want to tape us, that's fine. There's no problem with that. But I would ask you think about things before you start posting part of the situation and creating more crisis, more panic than is necessary. We're there to try to calm things down and make sure everybody's safe. And if the panic gets started by somebody posting something on Facebook, and then we've got parents responding, and it compounds itself, it can only make it worse. It's not going to make it any better. We know what we're doing. We proved that Monday, and hopefully we never have to have a real live crisis. But if we do, we're going to take care of the situation. We're going to make sure that we protect the lives of your children and get them out safely. But we don't want to compound that by giving out information as the situation's going that could be used against the situation, or could be used to hurt other people, or just compound the matter. So I would just ask, again, we don't mind if you videotape, but you might want to think twice about before posting it out there to the world right as it's going on. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But again, like I said, I'm very proud of how our officers responded. I'm very proud of how the school committee, the school teachers and the administrators worked through it together with us, and it worked out very, very well.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll let Doug finish talking.
Can I just, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to demonstrate how some things can be blown out of proportion, so to speak, when people get information through social media. You know, there was, without getting into names or any situational stuff, there was a parent that was trying to get into the school, because just like we're locking the kids in place, we're also locking people out of the school, the public safety does. So a parent was visibly panicked because of what they read on social media. So they were trying to get into the school because their kid was in there, and trying to get past the line that's made there. And you know, here's an example where a parent was, you know, spoken to and asked to calm down, take a deep breath, you know, and we're working on this. And eventually the police, for the individual's protection, just had to put him in handcuffs back into his own car and just say, just wait here. what happened is, in that instance, people saw that, and all of a sudden, the criminal was arrested who was breaking into the school, who had nothing to do with anything. It was just a parent that was panicking. And that's the type of thing where people start to read and have bits and pieces of information that we really don't want to have get out there, or at least if it goes out there, people take it with a grain of salt. Because these guys have to do their work during the crisis. And when information gets out there, it puts them at risk, it puts the students at more risk when outsiders are aware of what's going on, and those information can be monitored by unsavory characters as well.
Okay, good point.
And I think that's a good example of it, especially in a situation like this, where a little bit of knowledge is a bad thing. And then going ahead and reacting to that small piece of the information. I do want to compliment your department and the school department for your actions on this. From what I could hear over the radio and then further reports, it was extremely well handled, and you should all be very proud of yourselves. And you know, the town is lucky to have a force such as yours. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood?
I was driving by to get my coffee, and I saw the big crowd. I didn't know what was going on. So I swung into the EMS parking lot across the street. There were parents all standing across the street, and talked to some mothers, and they didn't know what was going on, but they knew the kids were locked in the school, and that's what they wanted. They stood back across the street, and they were happy the kids were all locked in and safe. So, you know, most parents, I think, reacted probably that way. So anyway, thanks for the efforts that you folks and also Liz's staff at the school, they did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And believe me, I'm a parent myself, and I can understand being panicked and being nervous, and that's to be expected, and that's why we ask you to trust us with your children's safety, and that we're going to get them out and make sure that they're safe. So if you give us that time, it'll definitely improve our response. But if we're dealing, as we had to deal with that gentleman, when we're dealing with that, we're not dealing with the situation at hand. Unfortunately, there wasn't a real situation at hand, so it didn't work out that way. But if I have to dedicate people to dealing with parents who are panicking, then we're not really dealing with the situation. So.
The superintendent's here. Liz, did you want to say anything relative from the school side as to how you felt the staff had handled the situation?
We're very grateful for the everyday presence of the police in the form of our school resource officer, because that gave us an immediate person who could then channel the resources to us. So I just can't thank you all enough for giving that position to the schools, because that really made all the difference in the world in the timing of it. I also was out of town, but in constant contact with the principal all day long, and I have to say the same thing. It's because our people have trained and worked with the first responders in Carver, that they were able to do this on their own while Mark was on one side of the country and I was on another. And although we were in contact, it worked very well. So I'm very proud of our staff and very grateful for our police force and the sheriff's department and everyone who pitched in. So fortunately, there was no reason for concern, but we had to find that out. So I'm just very thankful for all the resources we have to deal with this.
I think it actually speaks even better of the system in place, that with the heads of the two departments out of town, which is going to happen periodically, that the system worked flawlessly, and that you're both completely satisfied that it worked the way it was supposed to work. And so that speaks to both your departments. So that's I think something that should be reassuring to all the parents in town.
And we will be continuing to practice our drills probably a little bit more frequently, because now we know some things we need to work on. And today it went very flawlessly. Like Mark said this morning, we did a stay in place this morning, and then we did a lockdown, and then we went back and reviewed it at the end of the day, because it was a teacher professional development day, and the teachers were able to do this without alarming the children.
Excellent. All right. Sarah?
Thank you both for your professionalism.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Remember, you can donate to No Shave November on our website.
Yes, I'll be sure to make a donation.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Santa Claus and donation already tonight.
Should we be going and participating?
What,
No shave?
for the, how's your office gonna take it?
Well, they won't care.
I'll make a nice pledge.
Oh, shit, see?
All right, an update from the planning director.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, if I could just take a couple things out of order. I see Mr. Bentley's here,
Okay,
and I was gonna have him update us at 8:30 on the CPA funding for the recreation program, but, in valuing his evening, I was hoping we could call him up earlier, and plus, we're waiting for our planning director, who won't be here to 8 o'clock.
if there's no objection from the board, then we'll take Mr. Bentley out of order. We're not finding him out of order, we're simply taking him out of order.
So as background, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Selectman Hewins, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, submitted an application package to the Community Preservation Committee for the recreation complex as part of the elementary school building project. The CPA did fund the project, voted to recommend that it goes to town meeting. I think I just want to point out a couple quick things. As you may be aware, when we were designing the project for all projects, MSBA only allocates 8% of the project cost for site work. Site work would include the recreation facilities on the property. In speaking to our project managers, they are aware of no community, with the exception of maybe an urban community that has come close to meeting that 8%. So it's an unrealistic expectation. With that, the playgrounds would be in excess of that 8%. So since we would then have to pay 100% of any of the cost over the 8%, what we put together with the CPA's committee's support was a funding proposal so that we could collect, in essence, 71 cents on the dollar, which is greater than what MSBA would have approved if it had been within the cap, to fund some of the recreation components, which are not only needed for the elementary school, but also needed townwide. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of the CPA and have him share with you his committee's decisions.
Good evening. Last Thursday night, we held our mandated public meeting, not a public hearing, but a public meeting for the public to hear what it was that was being proposed for the recreation fields, community recreation fields at the proposed elementary school. And we actually made sure it was taped so that everyone can watch it later on. We discussed the magnitude of the projects and the timing of the projects. There is one portion of the project where there's actually 3 different playgrounds that are really integral to the school. So, you know, we understand that those have to be funded earlier rather than later. The ball fields and the soccer fields that are being proposed will probably be funded later. So, you know, we've understood the whole process. The committee reviewed the plans, reviewed the amounts of money proposed, and we have some concerns about some of the line items that are in the amounts that are proposed. And as the Community Preservation Committee has done ever since the beginning, we have pretty strict oversight of the funds being expended on every project. Well, I can tell you that this one is going to be even tighter because we feel that we should be having discussions with the proponents about the costs for certain of these items. We think that some of these items that are in here are probably over the top, but we're not sure. So what we want to do is we want to be very involved, and we've been assured by Mr. Milanowski that we will be very involved in the whole process, that we as a committee will be basically having the line item veto, if you want to call it that, but we'll be able to pare down the amount of money being expended. To that extent, the committee voted unanimously 7-0 Thursday night to approve an amount not to exceed $1,983,313, and that's a not to exceed. We fully expect that there's going to be a reduction in the amounts of money expended there. Our desire is also to bond as little of this as possible. We believe there's going to be a need for bonding some of this. We couldn't bond all of this. We couldn't pay for all of this in the first in 1 year's amount of money that we get. So it would definitely have to be bonded if we did the entire thing. But because the playgrounds at the elementary school are being looked at in probably 2016, and the ball fields are possibly being looked at in 2018, we believe that we can spread it out so that it will be less bonding required for the town, which is always a benefit. It will be basically monies that are being paid into the Community Preservation Act funds from the taxpayers, as well as our state reimbursement. And as Mr. Milanowski said, from the beginning, the state reimbursement to the town has been 71 cents on every dollar that we've put in. So we're getting a 71% return. So it's a huge return, and it's obviously better than what you can get in the MSBA. And I haven't heard what it's going to be yet this year, but I fully expect that because we're a 3% town, we're going to be well above the state average again in terms of the amount of money coming back to the town. So it's a real benefit for the town in terms of what we're trying to do. As I said, we're concerned that we're not concerned. We just want to make sure we have the oversight in terms of the expenditures of monies for all of these line items that are in here. And there's a lot of line items that I just took one myself, and I looked at a $1,500 picnic table, and I said, wow, it's a pretty expensive picnic table. But maybe somebody can convince me that we have to have a $1,500 picnic table, although maybe I can be convinced that we can just pay somebody in town for $150 to build us a picnic table and then replace it every 3 years.
So that's part of the challenge that we have through this project, is we're right now on schematic design, and we're looking at order of magnitude cost. So you do have an expensive picnic table that's designed to last 20 years, also the committee feels that since this is going to be a public project, there may be opportunities for having some material or some elements donated as well. The technical review committee that we were looking at as this goes forward is to have someone from the recreation committee, have someone from the CPA, have someone from the building principal, Dave Siegentoff, who's responsible for maintaining some of the recreation land, and then somebody from my office to try to provide a 5-member oversight committee as this goes forward, and then make recommendations back to the full CPA, because we have to have these staff meetings as the design process is moving forward. But I just want to emphasize one point, is that without going in this direction, all of these recreation costs would have been at 100% on the taxpayer, because we exceed the 8% cap. By going in this direction, we will anticipate receiving over 71% of the money, and about half of it we already have saved up in the reserve fund. So that's money in hand that already has the state match to it. So for those that are saying, well, the state's going to stop funding this, there's been no examples of that ever. What we do know is MSBA is going to fund goose egg of this, and here we have a plan where we already have half of it in the bank, so to speak, in our fund at 71 cents on the dollar. Can't get a return on investment greater than that, and that was the conversation I had with the finance committee. And from their standpoint, he's not here right now, but their point was also, where are you gonna get that return on investment?
And as I understand it, the state has, the legislature has approved an extra $10 million to be put into the Community Preservation Act fund, so that, assuming that, you know, the amounts of money from the revenue, Registry of Deeds comes through, they will add another $10 million to it, so that will mean that there's an even bigger pot for being given back to the CPA communities.
Chair, yeah, I just wanted to congratulate you and your committee on taking this position, because I do think there are items, just having finished upgrading the playground, there are items that you probably aren't going to get the numbers down, but there are items, I know, just as a, just to pick an example, that the suggestion was to have the surfacing poured plastic, and when we were investigating doing the resurfacing for the playground in 2013, unless things have changed significantly, that's incredibly expensive. And even though the surfacing that we ended up putting down here was the most expensive item for the playground, was way cheaper than that. So just thinking about that sort of thing, and benches and what they cost, there's probably items you definitely will be able to reduce. But again, you don't want to do it at the cost of something not lasting or being good quality either, in my opinion. But I think it's great that you're going to be that way.
Sarah,
Picky,
would
picky,
you
picky.
share the good news you have is that the municipal playground was funded at $54,147,000. Approximately how much is going to be returned, and what did the committee decide to do with it?
Well, we're thinking approximately 10,000 is going to be returned, and right, the committee, I don't know if you guys voted on it, but that, whatever is returned from the playground project, because we did save some money on that, and we didn't need as much surfacing as we thought we would. The committee is going to put that money back into this proposed CPA project at the new elementary school, the recreational fields and the play areas. So that reduces the cost even more, because that money's already been allocated, and it's a recreational allocation, so.
And I think that demonstrates the process is this project, the playground here, saved 20%. It's going to be reinvested into this new project, and the goal of the CPA is to be good financial stewards of that money, and hopefully they won't use all that, and they'll be able to plow that back into other programs. But we won't know that for another, 6, 12, 18 months until we get into the design and bidding out.
So thank
Alan?
you, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify a couple of things and, get from my mind, and also because I do know there's some consternation amongst some of the citizens that we're even using CPA funds. And as Mr. Milanowski said, if we don't use CPA funds for this, it's going to go ahead and have to be rolled into the total cost of the project. Adding that approximately $2 million, we'll go ahead and put $30 back on the annual bill for an average household. And we worked real hard, and the committee worked real hard to get that number down. Another way of looking at it's about $12 per 100,000 evaluation. So if your house is valued at 500,000, you're looking at increasing the annual cost to your tax bill by $60. So as Michael said, with the CPA, we're at least getting some match, whereas if we have to roll into the whole package project, there's zero. Also, it should be pointed out that I believe the lowest the state has ever reimbursed this is a little over 49% as the absolute minimum. And last year, didn't we have a maximum of, didn't we get almost 90% back or something like that?
98.59%.
I think last year we got 98.6. We were
Right, so-
exactly human body normal.
So that, that 71% average, it could be a lot higher, So there's a little bit of juggling on it, but, to go ahead and say, well, I realize we have the school, but there are people that may not want to vote for it because we're using CPA funds. I think that's, maybe a case of a little bit of cutting off the nose despite the face, because at least this way we're going to get some of the money back. And some of the help with the state, as opposed to it all falling on the taxpayer. And we're trying our hardest to make sure this does not fall on every taxpayer in the town. And if we can save a little bit money on it, I think that's the way to go. So I commend the committee for doing it, and I thank you, the CPA, for committing for approving it and Sarah for submitting the proposal. So I think it's the way to go. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Comment. I went over, was it Sunday we went to the playground ceremony?
Saturday.
Saturday, okay.
Remember, it was cloudy.
Saturday. And I was trying everything out. Of course, Kathy had our pictures in the paper.
Were you on a swing?
I was on a
We
swing.
were on a swing.
They were
yes.
all on swing.
But what I was looking at was all the fittings and everything, and the chains that are covered with vinyl, and a playground like that to last a long time probably needs to have those fittings and the safety parts of it. I picture, I'd say, hey, wait a minute, we're in a playground, I'll put a slide up, I'll put a swing up, but it's not gonna be the kind that is as safe and as long, it will have as long a longevity, Bob. I just, the thing that you sit on to spin.
The tire swing.
The fitting on top is stainless steel, and it's like a universal, and it's a complex fitting, and I can imagine that's a pretty big dollar item,
It was.
right?
When we first bought it.
So anyway,
But it's
I'm not
lasted.
advocating we spend a lot of money, but I am advocating that we do safe and we do longevity, because this school, we're hoping for this school to be a 75-year school.
And I took a look at the universal joint that was there, same as you did, and it was
I'm sorry, you were there, yep.
pretty amazed at the quality of what it was, and do understand that, if we have to go to these prices, we have to go to these prices. The only thing we're saying is that, we don't want to exceed the amount that we approved, and if we're getting the best quality and the longest longevity materials we can get, and that's what it's going to cost, then let's do it. But the Community Preservation Committee is very clear that they want to be involved in making sure that, we're cutting into any costs we can.
So you're not going to go ahead and just buy the most expensive thing because it's there.
No.
It's good.
All right. Thank you very much.
May I was gonna bring something up with Bob. We have a memorandum tonight, and it's regarding the planning director on a 40B project. And here she comes. I was just gonna see, because I know that 10% of the CPA funds eventually has to be spent on housing, Bob?
On affordable housing, yes.
Affordable housing. Would you like to stick around for 10 minutes and listen to Marlene's presentation?
Sure, be glad to.
Nothing like being put on the spot.
What's he gonna say, no, at this point?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I just,
dinner
it
waiting
was,
for it.
as I was reading it, I was saying, the CPA, the committee is probably, this is a kind of a ballpark thing. Maybe I'm wrong, Marlene, I don't know.
No, we've been looking and talking, prior to Jack's departure, we were working with Jack on various affordable housing issues and projects, and we've been looking for properties. We actually, the town approved a project to actually buy homes that are foreclosed on and actually fix them up and then resell them as affordable housing. So we've been working on that. We would love to be working on more of it. I wish there was more coming in. We did the Habitat for Humanity a number of years ago that was just a huge, the Community Preservation Committee paid for all the materials, and then of course Habitat for Humanity provided all the free labor. So we now have another affordable house in town because of that, and it's deeded that way, so it will stay forever affordable. So we're always looking for more affordable housing projects.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Mr. Town Administrator, is it okay if I proceed now to invite the planning director to join us?
Yes.
I'd like to ask our planning director, Marlene McCullum, to join us for an update on the proposed 40B project and the town process. How are you? We haven't had a chance to meet yet, so good evening.
Thank you. I don't have a formal presentation prepared, but I am here to discuss a possible 40B that will be filed with the town. I prepared a memo
Just give me just a second. Yes? Okay, could you better pull the microphone way up there. Yeah, Michael, you need to talk into your microphone better as well.
I thought maybe it was a private meeting.
No. Yeah, even closer, just right, all the way,
Okay.
all the way.
Don't be afraid, it will not bite.
I guess I went through the memo, and I did have a couple of questions. It's 39 units, 39 lots on, is it 8 acres?
I believe it's 18 acres.
18 acres,
Yes.
okay, so it's not quite as tight as it initially sounded then.
And Mr. Chairman, before we get into the specifics of the proposal.
Sure.
I think one of the things that's key in the outline that Marlene has put together is she's had experience in 20, 30 or more of these projects. But what's key is that the town needs to put its ducks in a row as this being the first major project to come through. So there's some procedures that she's reached out to the chair of the ZBA, and I've asked her to go forward and actually draft out some of those procedures as well as fees for this project. I think the other key thing from the public's awareness is a 40B project is a separate permitting process compared to going through the planning board normally, how things would progress. And what happens is the town has an opportunity to comment on the project. And initially, before the project comes to the town, it's appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to provide a technical oversight or a technical review as to some of the issues with the project. When it comes down to neighborhood issues and issues with abutters and so forth, that will be done during the public hearing with the ZBA. But prior to that happening, it is appropriate for the town to send in any official comments that we may have, again, on the technical components of the project, which she's outlined in the memo, and what those critical steps are to go forward. So I don't know if you want to just talk about those process steps that need to be done, and then talk about the proposal itself?
Well, and again, I guess for those that maybe aren't familiar with what a 40B is, it's a state, I think it's pretty much a state initiative to try to increase affordable housing in all communities. And all communities in Massachusetts are supposed to have a goal of getting to 10% affordable housing. I think Carver's at 3% roughly, according to their calculations. And when these come in, is it 25% of the units are supposed to be affordable housing?
Yeah, that's correct.
So of these 39 lots,
10.
10 of them would have to be affordable housing. And that means also that when those are sold as affordable housing, as Mr. Bentley just referenced to the Habitat home, there are covenants and restrictions on the deeds that when those are sold down the road, they have to still comply with a lot of the rules and regulations to make sure they remain affordable
Right,
as they go forward.
So as they're resold in the market, those restrictions stay in place and they survive foreclosure now. So as they are sold, they have to be sold to an income eligible household and they have to be sold at an affordable price.
And so, as we discussed, there have been some, I think, that have been, some people have brought some initial proposals to the town in the past, but none of them ever actually moved forward. I think what makes this one a little different is that it's gonna have town water. And in the past, some of these came to a full stop because when you are trying to put houses closer together and you have septic and well water, that's where they've run into problems in the past. So that's why this one perhaps might be more feasible than some other projects have been. Mr. Wood?
As I read through it, Marlene, and I read your background, and your background is very extensive on this kind of project. You will kind of be our overseer, but what I read through it is that what's the name of the board? The
ZBA.
The ZBA would have a huge responsibility in this whole process.
Yeah, they do. They issue the permit for the town until it gets to the building permit stage. So all of the local review, whereas a project that otherwise been reviewed by multiple boards in town, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Board of Health, would be reviewed by the zoning board.
Okay, good. So we, you know, as I read through that, I am completely in the dark on the 40B process. I mean, I understood what Ron said, because I can remember complaining that our 10% as a town is 2.5% or something, and I always felt that maybe if I moved to a mobile home to help myself in retirement, that was an affordable change for me. So I always thought that, why can't we call our mobile homes? Well, that's not the case. I found that out to be true. So it is a concern of mine as I look through all the steps that, like Michael is talking. And so how are we going to proceed with that?
So I guess maybe if you want to just touch on this, what the process is going to be, I guess, just to quickly walk us through it, just sort of from 30,000 feet.
Sure. So we're at the very beginning here, and the first step is that the state subsidizing agency, which in this particular case is Mass Housing, they have to issue a site eligibility letter, which, so they do a cursory review, essentially that the project's generally eligible. They'll do a final review at the end of the process to, you know, very thorough review to make sure all of the pieces are in place. But they do that first, and that process is underway now. They have 60 days to do that, and once that eligibility letter is issued, then the applicant is free to file locally. Now that eligibility letter is good for 2 years, so sometimes there can be a delay after the state issues their letter until it is filed with the zoning board. That's not anticipated in this case. Both the applicant and Mass Housing are indicating that the zoning board's going to see it this winter, shortly after the first of the year. So this period of time right now is essentially our time to prepare for this permit to be filed, because once it is filed, this clock starts ticking very quickly, and the zoning board essentially has to be ready to go. And there are some resources available that I can talk to you about to help the zoning board do that. But once the permit is filed locally, it's an expedited permit, and the zoning board does not have unlimited time. They do have to meet some deadlines in the process, and then once the permit is issued, the zoning board has 3 options. They can essentially approve a permit outright, they can deny a permit, or they can approve a permit with conditions. So once a permit is issued and filed, the final step is there's a 20-day appeal period at the end of it. And if it's not appealed, then the applicant moves on to building permits.
Is the IDC, not the IDC, but the Zoning Board of Appeals, are they aware of this yet? Because I figured it might be somebody resigned when they know they're responsible for this.
I can't speak for the board. I have not spoken to them at a public meeting, so I have not spoken to the board. I have let the chairman know that I've been contacted by the state.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Sarah?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Marlene, if you need some sort of technical review from the Board of Selectmen, are the plans available?
I do have the plans, yes. We have 2 sets of plans.
Can one set be borrowed?
One set's actually yours, and I'm
Okay.
happy to return it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, if the ZBA comes down and decides they don't want to approve the project, does the person who's proposing the project have any option of going to the state and the state overruling the
Yeah.
ZBA?
Yeah, so there's, the appeal process is that if the applicant appeals the permit, either a denial or conditions that they feel make the project uneconomic, They appeal to it's called the Housing Appeals Committee, and it's a judicial agency set up within the State Department of Housing and Community Development, a review board. If an abutter or another party of interest appeals the permit, so if the permit, let's say, is approved to the satisfaction of the applicant, but another person appeals it, then the appeal route is either Superior Court or Land Court.
Do you have a sense of how often, if a town ZBA rejects a project, how often, what percentage of the time it gets overturned by the state?
It's almost always overturned.
So in other words, if the town through the ZBA says, no, we're not gonna we don't want this project done, we're still kind of stuck. If the state turns back and says, oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna grant this permit, you have to allow it.
Yes.
And just so people understand why, there'd be an objection to a 40B, is a 40B project gets to bypass some local zoning. For instance, new construction in Carver normally has to be an acre and a half of land. This is 39 units on 18 acres, so it's basically...
quarter acre, 10,000 square foot lots.
Right, which is very unique in the town of Carver. So it's a lot of units in a very dense place, and there are other zoning issues that come up that can be overlooked because it's a 40B. So that's why the zoning board, when they look at it, their hands are tied to a great extent, which is why in the past, when there have been, the Board of Health has actually, I think, gotten involved because of the issue of the septic and the water, and because you can't overlook the fact that, you could have the potential of the pollution. But that's eliminated as an issue this time because it's going to be on town water. Right.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, too, Dick mentioned it as well. The zoning board has to pretend they are the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board and everybody else. So it's all up to them when it comes to a 40B. And I think I would like to make it clear for the record, too, that I think we're all, or at least I know I am, and have in the past been in favor of affordable housing. And I think most of us are, as long as it's reasonable. I think it should be made clear that the reason 40Bs tend to be objectionable is because they're usually developments that are being stuffed down our throats in such a way that it's just either it's not at the appropriate site, or there's 800,000 units, or something that just doesn't work for the town. Not that it's affordable housing in and of itself. We bought the Cole property primarily because well, that wasn't the only reason, but one of the reasons I think that we were able to buy the Cole property with CPA money. It's sort of serendipitous. They happened very closely to each other, is because that was a very hostile 40B proposal for the Cole property. It was just the wrong place for it.
And they got something similar for Savory Avenue as well.
Correct.
So, yeah, just a point of clarification. I've always felt that we do need some more affordable housing in town, both for our youngsters who are growing up and also for the senior population. However, I know there's going to be, especially with the butters and whatnot, there's going to be a lot of opposition to this, because we've already seen it at a couple of real early meetings that were done concerning this property. And I want people to realize that, in a lot of ways, our hands are going to be tied on this. And the ZBA's hands are going to be tied, and we're going to be pretty much under whatever the board is of the state that reviews it, even if it gets disapproved by the ZBA. And I just want the citizens to realize what this whole process is, and really how much leverage we have as a town for doing that. So I don't want them to be taken by surprise. Have 6 months down the road, they're going to a public hearing, they're saying, whoa, we didn't want this, and it's, so basically I want people to make sure they pay attention for when the public hearings are gonna be, attend those public hearings of the ZBA. So at least that way you can get your concerns voiced, and hopefully the ZBA will be able to take them into account, and hopefully the state will take that into account.
And
that's the main reason I brought these up.
And ideally, hopefully, the applicant is going to want to work with us to try to work out something that is reasonable to both sides. And so we have to begin that process and hope that we can forge some sort of relationship there.
Just two quick questions. Is there any positive on a 40B? I always like to turn it into a positive if you can. And second, doesn't Copper Lantern Lane have affordable units with, that wasn't a 40B?
They have a couple of units, yes, they
They do
do.
have affordable units in there, and
Some-
that's a
some
lovely
affordable.
development.
Everything that's proposed in Carver now is required to have a certain percentage of affordable units, but
Yeah.
that doesn't make the whole project
Yeah.
affordable.
So the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
project
yeah.
wasn't affordable, so they
Correct.
didn't have those, they didn't get concessions
percentage.
for.
And that counts towards our affordable housing, but just not enough.
So if I can speak to Copper Lantern Lane, because your zoning bylaw actually does have a fairly strong inclusionary component to it, where it is required. The difference is something done under your local bylaw, done under Chapter 40A, is it has to be compliant with your local bylaw. Whereas Chapter 40B, even if it may not result in all that many more affordable units, they can essentially exempt themselves from that local
So
bylaw.
that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Thank you.
Your experience has, I like to spin this a little, like Ellen says, we need to spin a little positive into it. Your experience working with people that have applied for 40B, how has that worked out? Has it felt like been stuffed down people's throat?
In some cases, yes, absolutely. In other cases, I've been involved in a number of projects where the Board of Selectmen in the town was a co-applicant with the developer, and they were town-owned buildings that were renovated and town-owned property that was disposed of and used through this process, through a 40B process. So again, it really depends on what the individual proposal is and how it'll be received. But it's the tool can be very clunky and cumbersome. It is a blunt instrument. Working with a statewide code, that is often the case, but towns have been able to negotiate, acceptable outcomes.
There's no specific role for the Board of Selectmen in this process, is that correct?
So the Board of Selectmen's role is actually right now on whether or not you want to send an overarching town-wide comment letter back to the state. And then, of course, during the specific review of the project during the hearing, you'll be copied on all the information and can obviously weigh in with any knowledge or questions at that point.
What is the time frame that we have to respond?
So that's November 19th that we have to respond by. So the recommendation to the selectmen is to authorize staff to canvass our professional staff, conservation, health, inspections, planning, etc., and put together a professional response, a technical response to the proposal we have, and to submit that by the November 19th on behalf of the town. And certainly if there's any selectmen that want to comment and include things in there, I would encourage you to give us your comments as well.
We have a meeting on the 18th. Is that where we'd be reviewing what was done?
Well, the recommendation is that we actually just prepare a technical document and we send that up
Okay.
based upon technical review,
Yep.
which then wouldn't need Board of Selectmen approval because you'd be authorizing us based upon the professional experience of our staff to put that together. You certainly can come back and then, have put that on the agenda and have a public review of the letter and so forth, if that's what you want to do as well. But the recommendation is to do it more from a technical standpoint.
So the letter that Marlene referred to, you're saying that letter would be produced and sent in on our behalf as if it's coming from the Board of Selectmen?
On behalf of the town, yes.
Okay.
And we can send our comments if we want as well.
Yeah, we can incorporate your comments into the letter.
Okay.
We just would like to have one unified letter go out from a technical standpoint. Certainly neighbors are going to be commenting, and that's their prerogative. but from a professional, technical standpoint, we're trying to keep this, within the confines of the regulations that we see are issues.
I guess the only other comment I'd make then is that I have a lot of confidence in our zoning board that they will perform at a very high level, and I know the chair is as meticulous and as good as anyone I've met. So I think that we're in good hands relative to the zoning board and the people we have in place there, and we'll be able to rely on them to do the responsible and appropriate, take the responsible and appropriate course of action as they move forward, so. All right, so are you looking for a motion then for this letter to be authorized, and we'll have a chance to review it prior to its being sent off?
I make that motion, and does that include who we'd like to see overseeing getting all the information together, or is that just
I mean,
all our?
Marlene would take the lead in all of
Okay,
this,
okay.
and then I could send it on behalf of the town standpoint, but she would be coordinating with the rest
Okay,
of her staff.
that's my motion.
I'll second.
Then was there a second? And it's to that letter that any of the selectmen that want to attach any additional comments can be added for that letter, correct?
So we should send those to Marlene then.
Correct.
Further discussion? There being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marlene.
Welcome to your first selectmen's meeting.
So Bob, I thought maybe you'd like to hear that discussion.
Now you can go home and have dinner.
Thank you for staying, Bob.
All right, move on to an update on the North Carver Route 44 Urban Renewal Plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Carver Redevelopment Authority has been following the master plan and has been looking for development opportunities on the north side of Route 44 near the old Wentworth property. With that, they've actually had some public meetings discussing some future potential development opportunities there. And at their last meeting last week, to start the process, they have designated the area south of the Plimpton line, east of the Middleborough line, north of the Route 44 layout line, and west of the Route 58 center line as the urban renewal area for the Route 44 North Carver development opportunities.
Will that be the area highlighted in light green on the map that we're looking at?
No, it's actually that full rectangle that you see.
Okay,
The light green is just the one parcel.
okay.
The one bounded by blue?
It's actually, sort of.
What whole rectangle do you mean, Michael? The whole page?
Pretty much the whole page. So again, it's look at the Middleborough line,
Except the
Anything-
cranberry bog.
anything east of that, anything south of the Plimpton line, anything west of the Middleborough, the Route 58 center line, anything north of
Okay, I got it.
the right-of-way. So it's really a rectangle that we're talking about. This is a priority of the town's master plan to look at new commercial activity in that site. We have been working with a potential developer, and this is really the first step to move forward with that project. So my update really here is just to give you a quick update that study, that plan is going forward. Now, I did use the word urban renewal plan, and that's the legal title under Chapter 121B of the state regulations. Clearly, this is an urban area, but we have to use that title. What this area is in the back piece is what would be constituted as open blighted land. There used to be a sewer facility back there. There's a stump dump.
How about the Whitworth property?
The Wentworth property, yes. So it would fall under the category of open blighted land, which was one of the subcategories of urban. So I just don't want anyone to get hung up on the word urban. That's the reason for it. So what the redevelopment authority will do is, in essence, this will become a sub-master planned area. And they'll look at doing a master plan development for this whole rectangle parcel. may have some impact on some property, may have no impact on other property. But what we do need to do is we need to prove transportation access in order to make the Wentworth property developable. So that's going to be the primary focus.
So it's just an update, no action necessary
An
at this
update,
time.
no action.
Any questions? We'll move on to FY17 Budget and Finance Update.
I have received all of the proposed departmental budgets for the town. I'm happy to say that all of the departments have, on average, stayed within the under 2% growth that we have as to what they need to maintain their services. I had hoped to provide a balanced budget to you this evening. It's not possible yet, just because of other conflicting priorities right now. But what is key, and what was probably the main component from the town side in moving this forward, was to get an understanding of what departments' needs were and make sure that we can live within what our financial projections are. And so far at Mass, all the departments are complying with that. I do want to say, and another reason for holding off on presenting this tonight, is we do have our Department of Revenue review going on that we received under the compact grant application that was awarded by the Lieutenant Governor here about a month and a half ago. And they are evaluating our financial management structure and the different departments we have here within the town, the assessing, the treasurer collectors, the accounting office, and tied into that a little bit of some of the personnel and payroll. And they conducted interviews last week. They're going to be having more next week, and they're going to be coming out with some recommendations as best practices as what Carver can continue to do to improve our financial organization. And that may include some budgetary changes as well. So we'll see how that progresses. And then the other report that's also ongoing is the evaluation of phase 2 of exploring the possibilities of combining the town DPW / facilities department, which we did last year, with the school facilities department. And we anticipate that study is going to take about 60 days to complete. That will include interviews with both town and school personnel. That will include some quantitative analysis of some of the pros and cons of doing that, some of the benefits, some of the economies of scale, some of the synergies that can happen by having a larger organization, if you will, manage all of the facilities. So we'll see what the result of that is as it comes out. The school committee is aware of that, and they are looking forward to seeing what the results of that are going to be.
Mr. Chairman, through you, has the 60-day clock started on that study?
Yes, the 60-day clock started last week.
Okay, so basically you're looking at right around Christmas time, having it finished.
Yeah, having it finished then.
We'll have it for Christmas.
We'll have some preliminary reports in early December, mid-December, but certainly the report's not going to be completed till the end of December, and we will probably be looking to have presentations in early January. Speaking of early January, that's probably about the same time we're going to complete the DOR report. And it's coincidental with our auditors have started their review of the town, and they were in here earlier this week, and I'm actually here all week. And we're anticipating on having their audit report and a presentation to the Board of Selectmen in January. So you're going to have several new
Long
data
meetings.
points coming forward in January for your review.
3.
So that, and essentially, I mean, you're going to have the budget essentially roughed out, but as we get the information in from the DOR and from the auditors and from any other studies that are completed, we'll have a chance to fine-tune those numbers based on the feedback that we get, so that there's nothing that says we have to be taking a vote mid-November to finalize the budget if there's no reason to wait and get some additional feedback.
That's correct. I mean, the Board of Selectmen has approved the 10-year forecast. We did approve that. And the next subset of that is there's the general government allocation and the school allocation. And based upon the preliminary review I have from the departments is that we will make it work within the general government allocation that we will have for FY17. Again, as you just alluded to, there may be some shifts within departments and some modifications based upon these reports, but overall, that dollar value, we're gonna be able to make work.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Update on the fire station.
I see the fire chief left. Let's see, fire station, we had our meeting this morning with the committee, and everything is progressing relatively smoothly. We've had a couple small unforeseen earth removal pieces that we had to do, even though we did such a thorough job of cleaning up the site. There was some residual old basement that was under an old building that was torn down, that was taken down in the late 1800s and no one knew about. So that just required a couple minor change orders. But overall, that project is moving forward well.
That must have been the house I lived in over there.
Log cabin?
That old house Nate Roby used to own,
Board of Selectmen comment period. We'll start with, I'm sorry?
Quick other things.
Well, they're not listed here.
I know, but that's what, it's listed under Town Administrator's Update.
But not,
So under Town Administrator's
bulleted,
Update-
however.
Not bulleted, no.
No.
No, very quickly, tied into our Department of Revenue evaluation and also with our auditors, we're gonna continue to have our finance department meetings. You were doing those every 2 weeks. We're now gonna be doing those every week. And Meg is gonna take the lead in organizing those meetings and making sure the priorities are given for the rest of the staff. As you may recall, when we extended her contract, we've kind of set it up as that she's more of a finance director. So we're gonna be having weekly meetings with all the financial departments to keep things moving along really quickly. As another update for Good Energy with Serped, how we were looking to do the energy aggregation bids. I sent off an email to folks last week that was showing kind of what the indicative pricing is going to be for rates. That meeting is going to be on November 10th to see what the bids come back in. And again, this is an opportunity for everyone to participate, but if you choose that you don't like the rate or you already have your own program, you can opt out and not be part of it. If you already have your program, you're actually not even included because you already have part of your own energy agreement. So that'll take place on November 10th. I've got a, we've been trolled.
Say what?
Troll?
Oh, yes, we've been FOIA trolled.
You may want to explain what that is.
I figured I would.
Troll.
Under the open meeting law, we're required to respond to any request that comes into the town for information. Back on October 23rd, we received a fax made out to FOIA officers, clerks, city managers, or department directors. And in essence, it's a standardized fax sent to what we assume is every community in Massachusetts, asking this company for us to do market research for them to determine if there's an opportunity for them to come in and pitch us a proposal to come in and help us with some of our collections components in the town. And it's a 3-page request that they send. So following legal's advice, and as authorized by the selectmen before, we sent back to them that under the state public records law, that there is an obligation for people to pay for taxpayers' time doing this. So if staff has to be diverted to put together a business request, and that we're allowed to charge for what the full rate is for the individuals doing it plus copying. So remember last year we talked about this and the board did authorize when there are unusual requests that are excessive, that we go forward and do that. So we did send off what the estimate would be, and we haven't heard back from them. But we've been,
I bet you won't.
but you know, again, that's just what happens. And my last thing is our attorneys Koppelman and Page, who I've been impressed with in my time here in Carver. They are moving. The last time we had a rate increase with them was in 2008. They are looking to increase their fee from $170 to $175 an hour. In my experience, that's still a bargain for municipal attorneys, because generally in other firms that I've dealt with, the minimum billing rates are $200. And I will say that, as you saw in our last 2 years, we've been turning money back in our legal account year over year, at least since I've been here. We've certainly been managing that well. So I just wanted to run that by the selectmen, and hopefully no one has any concern with them increasing their rates $5 after, and again, the first time since 2008.
Is that something we need to take a vote on tonight, or is it just an advisory?
It's an advisory unless anyone has a strong opposition.
Okay, so no votes needed then.
Okay. Now we'll move to the Board of Selectmen comment period. Ms. Maroney?
I'm first, huh? Okay, the first one is an announcement by the Friends at the Council on Aging that all veterans in Carver are invited to a free lunch on Tuesday, November 10th, in honor of Veterans Day. Lunch will include salad, baked ziti, garlic bread, and dessert. And please accept this as our simple way of saying thank you for your service, and also to thank the Carver Police Union for their generous sponsorship of this event. So November 10th. Also, just for my fellow Board of Selectmen, I don't know how to handle this, but we were signing licenses tonight. And can you guys just remind me about signing licenses when there's taxes that are behind? Not the little ones, but
I believe that if the licensee has to come in and collect their license, and if they come in for it, they don't get it if they don't pay their taxes.
so,
They can put together a payment plan with the treasurer for that, and I do want to point out that if you're past due in taxes, the percentage rate is 14% annually. So we're doing very well managing our money right now. We don't necessarily have a cash flow problem because we have a stabilization fund. So I know in the past the town has had some challenges with that. So in my opinion, as long as a payment plan is put together and there is equity in the property, I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't take 14% for someone being delinquent.
But to your point, Helen, they have to make arrangements to pay take care of those
That's what I wanna
taxes
make
before
sure.
the license can be released.
and that's what I just wanted to refresh my memory, that we do address that, and they can't just say, oh, well, I still owe money. Okay. Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you. The other question I have is, there is 2 licenses, and I don't think we can talk about it because it's not on, but there's 2 that I have a concern about in regards to things that have been happening at these locations.
Why don't you suggest that we put a hold on those 2?
Yeah.
And then we'll determine the appropriate way to address them.
Exactly, because I know we can't because of the open meeting law, but I would ask if you wouldn't mind doing that.
I actually had a concern about one.
I know you did.
And I don't know if it's one of the same as
It
yours.
is.
Okay.
Well,
One of
let's
the
put them on
same
hold and get
Yeah.
some advice as to how we should proceed on them.
Okay.
Okay. So give those to Elaine, she can make sure they get set aside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Ms. Hewen?
Oh, thank you. As Michael mentioned, we had, and I guess we talked about it a little bit, we had our playground rededication ceremony this past Saturday, the 24th. Saturday before last, the 24th. It was a great success, even though it was a cold, blustery, felt like a winter, but we had fun. I wanted to thank a couple of individuals in particular for everything they've done for the playground. P.J. Kelly, who is an Eagle Scout. He contributed a project over there, the shade structure. Ashley White, who is a Girl Scout cadet now because of her work to purchase the big slide over at the playground. A resident, Dennis Bent, who I know it's not clear he really wants a lot of adulation, but his company, Bent and Son Concrete, did a beautiful job. They donated his services to make the poured concrete surfacing under the water structure not only safe for the kids, but also attractive. I encourage people to go look at it. It seems very simple, but we could never have done it. Peter Allegrini and his crew at Signs by Design donated the beautiful signs over there, and we appreciate that as well. And I do want to emphasize how important and wonderful the DPW department is in all of this, as well as the Buildings and Grounds crew. They just, it took us forever to get this done, and they were right on it when parts and equipment came in. Last, I just wanted to mention a couple of things about YPAC, which is the Young People's Alliance of Carver, a youth program, after-school program that we have at the middle school. We just finished our Junior EMS Explorers program, and I wanted to thank Tom Walsh and John Banzel, who donated their time to give our kids some EMS classes, which they really they loved all the bandages and the stretchers, and had a great time. Rick Phillips donated his time to give us a woodworking program at YPAC, and we really appreciate that. We're now having a Civil War reenactment program. Our very own Ron Clark is donating his time, among others. There are two or three other people that are down there once a week for the month of November, and we really appreciate that as well. And I wanted to thank all the adult volunteers and the families who have donated snacks. Every time we almost run out, here comes another armful. We also had some anonymous 7th grade children donate some snacks to us. So we appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alan?
Okay, a few things. First off, I think a big thank you needs to go to the Carver Police Department Union and also to Edaville for some very generous donations they made to the Carver Food Pantry. I believe Edaville made collections and also provided a check of about $4,500. Was it, Don? And the police union went and purchased 200 different items for the food bank. So I think they really need to be recognized for their donations. And also a reminder, we're getting into the holiday season. The needs from the food pantry are going to increase. Yeah, it's true, those supplies are needed year round, but especially during the holidays. So I ask everybody to keep that in mind, and if you can, make at least a small donation. Michael, do we need to read off Lynn's letter that you forwarded to us about the dates?
That would save me the job of doing it, so please do it.
Oh, would you like? Okay. We got this correspondence from our town clerk, Lynn Doyle. It concerns the upcoming elections. The last day to register to vote for both the special town meeting and the 12/12 election is Friday, November 20th. You can register on the 20th, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Also, please check your voter status. If you have not returned a census, your voting status will be inactive, and you'll need to be required to complete an affirmation, there we go, of current and continuous residence and show identification before you can vote. Absentee ballots will be available approximately 2 weeks before the election and will be available up until noon on Friday, December 11th. Make sure you contact the town clerk's office first or check the website. We'll be posting notices on the local channel, website, and Carver Reporter as soon as ballots are available. You may vote absentee for the following reasons. We will be absent. You will be absent from town on election day, or have a physical disability that prevents you from voting at the polling place, and/or cannot vote at the polls due to religious beliefs. There are some people under the impression that if the article does not pass at the special town meeting, there'll not be an election. I would like to explain it to be explained that there will still be an election no matter what. Would you like to clarify that?
That's correct. If for whatever reason the December 1st vote fails, there's still an election scheduled for the ballot question whether it passes or fails.
Okay.
Just as
And
in the
that's the
past
vote
that
for
the
the
town
school.
meeting voted, yeah, right, for the school.
Well, nobody's saying that, so I
Oh,
wanted
I'm
to
sorry.
get that out
Yeah.
there. This town meeting is about the new school, and so is the election, so that should be made
It's an election on a ballot
on a ballot.
to authorize debt exclusion for the school, subject to Article 2 at the special town meeting.
But just as in the past, town meeting passed the new school, and then the town election voted against it, the reverse could happen. Town meeting could vote against it, and the town could pass it, so.
So
The
I
election
just-
takes place no matter what.
I just want to get that out there and save our town administrator a little bit. I do have one more item. Where do we stand on a joint meeting for the school committee? Dick has mentioned at the last two meetings, especially when you consider the tone and tenor of the agenda, the way their agenda was written at their special school committee meeting. I am really getting very concerned that we've not heard, of this, of having a joint meeting with them. It's reaching a point, 'cause, we understand we need to work together, and just deafening silence of not having a meeting is really bothering me.
Yeah, I have been in touch with Gina, and she is procuring dates, and she promises she'll have those to me shortly.
No disrespect, Mr. Chairman, but we have heard that for the last two meetings.
I don't know what you want me to do.
I know there's nothing to do, but, it's very frustrating. And I know you're doing what you can.
Mr. Chair, can I add something to Alan's point about the registering to vote?
Yes.
I just wanted to make it very clear that if you, I ran into someone the other day in a store, not in Carver, and a young woman who lives in town, and her parents are registered, but she is not. And I said, it just occurred to me, I said, oh, in case you're wondering, if you registered to vote, it does not mean that you will automatically then be called to jury duty. Jury duty and being registered to vote has nothing to do with one another. And that was her reason for not registering.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I just wanted to get that out there, that she might be called for jury duty
So you can,
anyway.
so basically what you're saying is you can be called to jury duty whether you're registered to vote or not.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Well, they take the people from the street listings,
Yeah.
not the registered voters.
That's- yeah.
All right, Mr. Ward?
I just wanted to add something if I could to Alan.
Go ahead.
I too concur about the delay in getting together to meet with the school committee, because we are trying to establish a relationship. And quite frankly, I still haven't heard, the Board of Selectmen still hasn't heard why I was denied. They were supposed to offer a response as to why I was denied the use of the school when I wanted to put on an educational workshop for the parents of this town. So.
Okay, we have the next section coming up in our meeting here is the update on the elementary school project. And that will be, there's a couple of issues related to it. It's on the wrong agenda. So I didn't want to get into too much. I was going to let Michael deal with those issues. Again, I'm the chairman of the building committee. So I wanted to reiterate or go over the dates that we are planning on. And our next meeting is November 17th. On the 18th, we, the building committee, are going to be hearing how the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, votes on our proposed budget for the new school. And it looks very positive because we've been following it step by step by step. So we're not feeling negative at all about that. The 19th, the next night, which would be a Thursday night, the building committee is going to have a fax presentation at the elementary school. And there is going to be tours so that people can go around and look at the school and then join into the presentation. And that would be the 19th, okay? From there, of course, then we're going through our Thanksgiving recess and for everything. And then December 1st, which is the first Tuesday in December, we're going to have a town meeting. And it'll be on the school. okay? That's a very important date, and you will be hearing from me over the next few weeks about that, because I will keep reminding you folks. December 12th, again, is the ballot question, the election that Lynn, our town clerk, was talking about, okay? So those dates are important. November 19th, an opportunity to go to the school and see it. December 1st, town meeting. December 12th, ballot question. Now, next week, the 9th, the 10th, the 12th, and the 13th, remember the 11th is a holiday, the school is going to have tours. If you are interested in going to the school to see it, there will be somebody there to show you around. Okay? So I wanted to emphasize those dates, and I will be emphasizing them again. Okay. My other big thing would be the food pantry. I wrote in, we're coming near the holidays. There seems to be a bigger need for families. And so I said, don't forget the food pantry. And my wife said, don't forget it year round. So anyway, that's a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to just reiterate what we talked about earlier about Adopt a Nursing Home, that the Carver COA is adopting Life Care Center of Plymouth and the Golden Living Nursing Home in Plymouth. The residents of nursing facilities are often lonely during the holiday season, and we'd like to bring some joy and smile to the seniors who no longer live at home. And everyone in town is encouraged to bring a wrapped or gift-bagged item to the Council on Aging, 48 Lakeview Street. Drop it off between 9 and 1 o'clock, Monday through Fridays. And again, if you could put a little sticky note on there saying if it's for a man or a woman and what it is that's inside, so that we'll make sure that in case they're on a restricted diet, that the wrong people or the right people get the gift. Some suggested items are puzzle books, large print if possible, word search books, personal care items, and snacks or candy. So, and again, those can be dropped off right up until Tuesday, December 15th at the Council on Aging. Also, just Edaville has closed down now that we're past Halloween, and they'll be opening, I think, on November 20th for the Christmas Festival of Lights that we all look forward to. So just keep that in mind.
Isn't the first couple of days a special rate for Carver residents? I thought I saw that online.
That's possible. If we find out that's true, we'll make sure we advertise that. And then I also was just going to mention the food pantry. If you're shopping in the Carver Shaws, there's a barrel just on the exit and the way out. So every time you're in there, if you just can grab a few extra items and drop them in the barrel on the way out, it's a great time of season to do that. All right, moving on. We will go to the update of the elementary school project.
As the chairperson, we are in waiting of the MSBA. We submitted our budget for the school a week or two ago, maybe it was a little longer than that, to the subcommittee. They report to the MSBA committee. The next time they meet is November 18th, and that will be a big step for us for that school project. We are doing outreach now, and I've been talking to different groups, the mobile home parks, Lions. They were very receptive for me. We have several other visits to Meadow Woods. We have Waterview, and and this morning I talked to a few folks over at the Business Roundtable. So but most of our presentations will be more than just myself. Different people from the committee have volunteered. And the young people are working on Facebook and different approaches to present all things, because I went to the fire department and the idea was they do not like to get involved politically. So I tried to present what we've done, the building committee, what the committee is, the basic plan of the 23-acre site, the recreational aspect of it, the building, the basic components of the building, the idea that it is a place that can be expanded on, and to change the pace, when I hear a 39-unit 40B project, I'm saying 2 kids per household, that's almost 80 kids. That would be 3 classrooms. But anyway, that's a change. We do have room for expansion, and this building is going to be bigger square footage-wise than the present 2 buildings. So that is an expanded area for programs. There will be 30 regular classrooms in the building, and then there will be a number of small meeting rooms for special needs programs in math, in reading, and in other areas. So anyway, back to where we're at. We're working forward, and we're waiting for the Mass School Building Authority to say, go. Okay? And so at that point, we will go. The town administrator said something last night at our building committee meeting that struck home. This is the best financial deal we have ever had and we will ever get for this school. Did you say that, Mr. Malinowski? Yep. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so I guess we've already talked about the CPA component of it, and thank you, Sarah, for your work on that, and the Community Preservation Committee. So pretty much that's where we're at. And so we'll be trying to, we're waiting. The MSBA does a very detailed coverage on what our town is doing. They want to know what the attitudes in our town are. They watch the newspaper. They watch a variety of things. So we really do not want to move forward in a lot of outreach, signs or anything like that until we know just what the MSBA is going to vote. Then the parents and the committee can move forward.
Okay, thank you. And then finally on the school elementary project, last week, I believe, Mr. Malinowski told us that there is a decision to be made as to whether to move forward with a portion of the project prior to knowing whether or not the project was going to pass. So I'd ask him maybe to lay that out before us again, and then it's going to be up to us to decide how we want to proceed with that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in our last meeting, as everyone is aware, in 2014 at the annual town meeting, we authorized $410,000 to move forward with the initial feasibility study that then evolved into a schematic plan. In 2015 at the annual town meeting, in expanding the project to look at the schematic plan, we went to the Capital Outlay Committee and the Finance Committee to request an additional $150,000, which then brought down the project to $560,000 in order to go through this effort. Those funds that we had requested from the Capital Outlay Committee and also from the Finance Committee were reallocated back at the town meeting in 2015 out of free cash. What was proposed at the last meeting, and then I'll provide the detail now, is to continue that process because we have an opportunity to continue to make momentum on the project while at the same time potentially avoiding some significant cost differentials that happen in the winter. In talking to the school building committee, in a nutshell, what we're looking to do is we are funding the design, and part of that design work was going to start in January and February. However, by starting in January and February, by the time this gets designed, goes out to bid, and a contract is awarded, we will be potentially in the heart of the winter next year. With that, that adds slight premium cost, because when you're pouring concrete that's going to have water in there, and you have freezing temperatures, you have to heat the ground around it, you have to have heating blankets, you have to have external heaters, you have to have diesel fuel powering those heaters 24/7 to maintain temperature while the concrete sets. In the memo that I passed out to you, it's estimated that that cost could be about $193,000, $194,000 of cost premium. And that would still allow for a September opening, and that's assuming the design started in January and February. What is being proposed is that we take that same design money in January and February, and we just move that design money to November and December. That will take, in essence, almost 2 months off the project to allow us to be just like the fire station, where we'll be putting in the foundations in October and November. Therefore, with a higher probability of avoiding these cost extras for heating the ground, the concrete, when it's being poured. And to me, that is a pure business decision that you will save up to $193,000 by moving the design timetable up. So with that, what is proposed is that the Board of Selectmen authorize us to, and I have a funding mechanism for doing this, to move that design cost up would cost about $185,000. That's about $31,000 a week, and we're really looking at about 6 weeks to keep us moving forward. So 6 weeks of design cost is $185,000. Again, as you recall, last year we forward funded $150,000 to move forward with the schematic plan. So that's what the request is for the Board of Selectmen to authorize me to move the project timetable forward from a design standpoint so that we can avoid this winter premium when we're pouring all of the concrete.
And you said you had a funding mechanism for that 180,000?
I do, and I can get into that detail now, or we can just discuss the concept.
Okay, well, and I just want to make sure I understand.
Yep.
The $180,000 is going to be spent whether we spend it now or spend it after the first of the year.
Correct.
The difference is, if we wait, we spend an additional $193,000 on top of the 180.
Correct.
So by making the decision to move ahead now, we save $193,000 on the project. Now, the issue is, if the school ends up not passing, we've expended $180,000 that is at that point gone.
Correct.
So that's the decision before the board, is to how to proceed. I don't want to let anyone believe that we for a minute think that, you know, the school is automatically going to pass. We know we have to. I think we've done the committee has done a wonderful job making sure everybody knows all the details. But it's, so it falls on us to have to make essentially what's a business decision as to, do we expose the town to an additional $193,000 because we don't want to spend the $180,000 now? And that's perhaps where I'd like to know where I think part of making the decision would be to know where you're thinking of getting the monies from, because if it's impinging on the operating budget, that's one issue. If it's coming from some other area, so I think perhaps before we start discussion, if you could just outline where you're anticipating getting the funding from.
Okay, so the request would be for $185,000 to authorize us to go forward and move the design piece forward. That comes out to about $31,000 a week. What the proposal would be is, first, the proposal does not impact any operational issues. And by that, Right now, we are running a surplus in our gasoline account due to the uncharacteristic lower values that we're having on a per gallon usage for petroleum. So what I would be proposing is for the first week, which you guys have the authority of doing tonight, so this can be an immediate piece without no further meetings, is that you reallocate $31,000 out of the gasoline account to fund the first week of this design. Currently in the gasoline account, we have $180,000 budgeted, and right now we should be at, based upon our latest calculations, be at 25% expenditure. We're at 7%. So we've spent $12,000 so far, and that should have been $45,000. So that's the first piece. Then for the residual amount, what I would be proposing is to have a meeting with the Capital Outlay Committee early next week and ask them to reallocate, like they did last year, some money out of their Capital Outlay Reserve Fund to continue moving the design process forward. They have $100,000 in that account, plus they have some project management component that they could fund out of that. And after that, I would then go to the Finance Committee, and they are also going to be having a meeting next week, and ask them to fund the remaining of the $185,000 that the Capital Outlay Committee would not be able to fund. So with those three funding mechanisms, then what I would propose is that at our special town meeting that we're going to have on December 1st, is out of our free cash allocation, which has been certified, and we have been doing very well in reducing down expenditures. And this year we did get some additional motor vehicle excise that was unexpected, that we then have Article 3, which would replenish those three accounts that I've just mentioned. Again, this follows the same process we did in 2015. It does not impact the operational budget, and that's what the proposal would be.
And if you took it out of free cash, isn't some of this reimbursable?
Some of this is reimbursable, yes. All of this money would be reimbursable upon approval of the ballot question.
Right, so if the ballot question passed,
Yep.
then this money is paid for.
Correct. This money that we're talking about is part of the $49
Right.
million project.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Okay. I just want to make sure everyone has that clear and understands the facts. All right, comments from the board? Mr. Ward?
I have being on the building committee, I have a concern for doing the cement work during the winter. I mean, you can do all the heating and everything you want, but there's always the chance that some surface concrete or something else can freeze. And so it is a concern of mine that we have all that preparation work by the architects to wait until January or wait until we pass the town meeting and then move forward with it, and that means pushing all the foundation work and footing work and all that from the next fall into the winter. I think that would be I just wouldn't want to see that happen. I think that I've been over and watched the work at the fire station, and all of the concrete work is at a time when it's going to cure properly and it'll be a good job. And that's what I would want to see with the school. So I would want to take a chance to move forward on this financial package that we're talking about here.
Helen?
This is a tough one. I mean, we're playing Russian roulette, and I agree though with you, Dick, about doing this type of work.
Excuse me, Helen, could you use the microphone, please?
To be doing this work in the middle of the winter. What, is there any other alternative, like if we delay?
No, and
I mean, if we delay the project, I know we want a school opening in September, but
it's a very good question. Right now, construction projects have a cost escalation that's running between 5 and 7%.
in what time frame?
Annually.
Annually,
So,
okay.
you're looking at 0.5% per month, percent per 2 months. When you're adding, there is a possibility, certainly, we could delay the school opening from September and open it up mid-year and move everything back. But that's half of a year of that interest rate, so that's 3% of $50 million. That's $1.5 million as a cost escalation for pushing the project back, given the competitive cycle that we have. And I share your concern, as I expressed to the board last week, 2 weeks ago, is this is a very difficult and unusual decision. But if we were a private sector business, this is a smart business decision, because you are avoiding additional costs down the road by making this decision moving forward. And what I didn't say at the last meeting, and I've said it tonight, is we've actually done this already last year when we moved forward with the schematic design, and we had the capital outlay and the finance committee do that. And I'll just comment back on one of the things that Mr. Ward said, is that I do believe this is the most financially responsible building we will ever be able to put forward. And I go back and quote what our project managers have said. If we had moved forward with the renovation project as designed, it would have been $67 million in today's money. And right now we're at $49 million. And that's with new construction, better circulation, more energy efficient, and meeting the academic plan. So renovation is out because we know that that's going to be significantly more. And this is the best plan that we can come up with. So if we want to push it off for 6 months, we can, but that has a cost. And that's why, this is a tough decision, but I believe that the facts that surround it make logical and prudent sense, that this is an opportunity of actually saving future money.
Did you say that the cost of pushing it out 6 months would be approximately a little bit over $1 million?
Well, if you look,
for the projected annual cost increases for building?
correct. So if you're looking at a 5 to 7% annually, 6 months is let's call it 6% just for there. And if you're doing it 6 months, it's half of that, it's 3%. So 3% of 49, call it $50 million, is $1.5 million.
No, it wouldn't be that much. I mean, it's reimbursable to what, about 59%. So the actual cost to the taxpayers would be about 40% of that number.
Right, a portion of that number, but project
That's still
cost-
$400,000 to $500,000.
You know what? I take that back, Ron. It would be the full $1.5 million, because we're at our MSBA cap. They've already committed they're not going to spend another dollar. So if we delay the project, 100% on us.
And that's a lot more than $180,000.
Because we've already met our 8% for the site piece. We've already met our $299 per square foot. And with their other pieces, they have a fixed number that they're going to spend. And that fixed number is based upon a delivery in the summer of 2018. If we push that off 6 months, that increased cost is 100% on the town.
So,
Go ahead.
so I was just going to say, so if this project moves forward, we're going to be paying the $180,000 regardless. But
Correct.
if we push it off, we'll be paying $180,000 plus $190,000.
Right.
Correct.
But that 180,000 is 60% reimbursable.
Correct.
Right.
What I wanted
The
to,
ballot question goes through.
So I think it's
Right,
pretty much a
right.
no-brainer.
I have two concerns. One, that I don't want people to think that if we move forward on this, that it's a given that it's going to pass. I don't want people not to show up at town meeting and not to show up for the ballot question, because if we went forward with this motion. But the other thing I wanted to say was that one of our members, who was pretty well versed in large-scale construction, said, when we were talking about an expedited program schedule, he said that this project at this kind of money is, if you push it off, it's between $9,000 and $10,000 a day.
My only
So that
question
was
is, I'm sorry, Dick, I thought you were
No,
done.
I'm done.
This isn't a no-brainer. This is a very difficult decision, in my opinion, because, you're dealing with taxpayer money before it's a solid, that it's not necessarily gonna go through, so, can I just ask another question? If we were to put off our decision on this, how long do we have to put off the decision? The reason I say this is, we did approve the schematic design in advance of it going forward, however, that was town meeting approving that. This is us, 5 people saying, yeah, let's go and spend almost $200,000 of taxpayer money in advance. And I just wanna feel the pulse,
We did that before. Actually, it was this board that did recommend spending the $150,000
right,
going forward.
but we went to town meeting.
And then we went to town meeting, and I'm proposing doing that same thing.
Oh, okay.
Is we spend the $185,000 now, and on December 1st, we go to town meeting and ask for that money to be reallocated.
Okay, so town meeting will have.
But it we'll have already spent the money.
Correct. And we had already spent the money last time, too, because it had already been contractually obligated.
Right, but just to be clear, to Helen's point, it's not town meeting make the decision, we're still making the decision.
Yes. And they ratified it, is probably the way to describe it.
Alan?
Okay, I agree with Helen, this is not a no-brainer. We are talking about, spending money almost, before our eggs are hatched. And I would not want the people of the town to say, oh, the Board of Selectmen are just assuming it's going to pass, and there is no guarantee of that. Having said that, you're looking at, we're basically putting to risk $185,000 now on the chance that it doesn't get voted, versus waiting until it is voted and we find out that it is approved. I'm going to suggest that $195,000 for having to do things in the winter is a low estimate, because that's based on a, quote, average winter.
Right.
If you get colder earlier, that's gonna jack up that extra cost. If it gets colder than normal, that's gonna jack up that cost. So that extra cost that we're gambling on could be as much as $200,000 to $250,000, depending on temperatures and how the winter's going. So you've got to weigh, okay, we're risking $185,000 versus upwards of $200,000, $220,000. I'm loath to go ahead and spend the money ahead of time before the vote, but I think, and I have to agree, from a purely business formula, that it's the proper step to take, and I would be able to support spending that money now, knowing it'll be coming back, and yes, understanding that if the vote, the election doesn't go the way we want, and the town doesn't approve it, okay, yes, we've lost that money, but I think sometimes you gotta take a gamble. I love Texas Hold'em, and there are sometimes you just gotta look at your hand and say, this is the best I'm gonna get, I'm gonna go ahead and go for it, so.
Alan,
That was my point, actually.
what did you say the additional tax burden is to the taxpayer per $100,000?
$12 per 100,000 of the, to approximately $12 per 100,000 of evaluation.
So that we would be adding $24 essentially, if we...
Actually, we wouldn't be adding anything, because if it gets approved, it's all
No,
part of that
if it didn't, I'm
49%.
saying in the worst case scenario, if we authorize, no, I'm sorry, if it got approved, but we did not spend the $180,000 in advance, $185,000 in advance, then we're paying an extra $94,000, basically $200,000. So we're adding $24 a year to everyone's tax bill automatically at that point in time.
No, not really, because that's based on that was based on adding $2 million to the cost, so.
Oh, I thought you said it's $12 per 100,000.
Evaluation to come up with that number, but that's based on adding $2 million to the cost of the project. So we'd be looking at adding $200,000 to the cost of the project, so it'd be probably a couple of bucks. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Okay, all right, I just want to be
It
clear.
would not encourage, given the fact that we're looking at borrowing 25 million, 200,000, the whole scheme of thing is not that big of an increase. However, we've really stressed, we've wanted to get this down. cut as much off, from the homeowner as possible. It just bothers me that, we have a chance to save money. 200,000 out of that project may not seem like that much, but I mean, every little bit counts. That's just, that's what I'm looking at.
I guess I have to ask the question, why wasn't this considered in the original numbers?
No,
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It just seems like this seems to always happens when we do a project that out of the clear blue, we get thrown a curveball. So I'm sure it's legitimate,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
it's a lot of money.
No, it is a lot of money, but I want to be clear, I don't think that this is a curveball. This is just as you get into more detailed information, you start to dig deeper into the details as you move forward. So none of this changes the schedule of the project. It's still going to open on September of 2018. It's just that when we got into starting to backtrack and look at the dates of when things were going to happen, you analyze it in more detail. And that's when you came in, hey, time out. We have a risk because of where our town meeting vote is and how that's going to play out in the requirements that it takes to design a project. That after we go out to bid, and we've already taken off 2 weeks out of the schedule because we're not doing construction at risk components, so we're trying to consolidate the schedule, that even with the readjustment of the schedule, it still puts the foundation time into winter months. And where I have an opportunity to come back to you and say, here's an opportunity to save $194,000, I'm gonna make that recommendation to you because I wanna avoid any and all extra costs as possible. And this is an evolution. I mean, we're not at 100% design plans. And we will make adjustments in the plans to keep everything under budget. But here's something that we have no control over. As Alan said, if we have 6 feet of snow that winter, like we've had this past winter, and we have an early cold snap, that number goes up. So since we can't control Mother Nature, the best way to control Mother Nature is to get ahead of it.
And by
The
pushing
building
it-
components we can work with and make modifications to, but the Mother Nature, out of our control.
And pushing it off for 6 months, I don't think is economically viable, because, I don't want to add another 1.4 million to the cost of this project, waiting, delaying the construction
Oh,
phase.
I agree, but I'm just trying to think of ways. Now, I guess I'm just throwing this out there. If we do lose out and the ballot question doesn't go through and the town has to eat the cost, is there any way that the school can pitch into that loss instead of it all being on the taxpayer?
Well, we have 180 days from November 18th, once the MSBA approves the project, to get town approval. So if something happened on December 12th, and I think I'll stand up in front of town meeting and say, this school building committee has done a yeoman's job in trying to reduce the cost down, more so than any other project. And we've demonstrated that through the fire station project. This is the best we're gonna get. If for some reason that does not pass, then we still have within those 180 days opportunity to bring it back to town meeting and to try to a ballot vote to discuss it differently.
But that didn't answer my question
Yeah, sorry.
about whether the school can have some skin in the game if.
Well, I don't think we can answer that on
Yeah, I
their
mean,
behalf
that's-
here.
But what I guess it leads to my original question is, do we have to vote on this tonight?
Well, let me go back to the school. The design of this building is not being controlled by the school. The design of this building in the committee is being controlled and orchestrated through this Board of Selectmen. And that is why we've been able to get the price down to $49 million. So the school is waiting for an opportunity to use the building, but we're making sure those costs are being kept down. Certainly we can wait, but that just puts us further at risk.
In what way?
Moving
That's
the
why I'm
timeframe.
asking you.
Sure, no, it's just moving the
Like-
time frame back. So right now, we're trying to make up 6 weeks to a month by moving forward right now. If we wait for 2 or 4 weeks, then that puts us closer to the risk period for the winter.
Michael, just a quick question. The $195,000 for the extra cost for having to do concrete in cold weather.
Yep.
Was that originally part of the budget? I guess what I want to know is, did someone point out you can save $195,000 if you do it this way, or it's going to cost an extra $195,000 if we don't do this now? You see what I'm saying? In other words, was this part of the contemplated original cost?
Usually, construction don't like to do foundation and footing work in the winter.
No, I understand that.
I mean,
But
that would
I
have
guess
been in
I'm
the plan.
trying to find out whether the 195 was part of the project and the design folks came back and said, hey, you can save yourselves $195,000 from the original project cost if you move ahead on this timeline, or was it already factored in there? Or was it not factored in there and we're just recognizing now we're adding $195,000 of the cost?
This is an opportunity, where this would fall it'd be fall under construction contingency. That's what this would fall into. So we have the rates per unit, number of blocks, tons of steel, et cetera, and we've calculated that all out, as we've said to the previous selectmen's meeting, where there's 80 pages of detailed estimates on the quantities that are there. This $194,000 would be absorbed through the contingency. Our job and what we're trying to do is to not use that contingency. We're trying to have this project come in below cost. And, you can't foresee everything. So when you have an opportunity to potentially save $194,000, that's what we're here discussing tonight.
And also, if I could, Mr. Chairman, speaking of the contingency fund, there are going to become change orders as this project moves forward. No doubt about it. And you don't want to deplete the contingency fund before you even get into the main construction part, because then all of a sudden you're going to find yourself over budget and no way to pay for it. So if we can save that $200,000 in the contingency fund now, I think it's prudent to do that to give us an extra buffer as the project goes forward.
Mr. Ward?
Addressing somewhat of Helen's question on why this gap between now and after the town votes for the architects. Somebody came to the building committee last night and asked the question, what happens, why is there such a big time period between January 1st, or when the town votes it, and we put the shovel in the ground on September 1st? Well, it has to do with the Mass Building Authority, okay? They have dates all along the way that we have to prescribe to as we go along. The architects finish the schematics and the financial plan and everything a couple of weeks ago. Then there was no more money to pay them at that point to get to the town meeting. That gap was something that was hard to figure in because we didn't know exactly when the subcommittee of the MSBA was going to meet, and I'm talking about last spring when we were putting a schedule of all the meetings together. So we end up with about a 6-week period where we'd like the architects to be moving forward, because the dates that we have to meet in January, February, March, and then putting the bid program and then put everything out there, and all that has to be submitted through the MSBA first. So it's a time-consuming process that has to happen, and of course, they're paying for 28 million of the project. We're paying for 23, so their process has to be followed to a T. And that's basically how this gap with the architects came about.
And I think getting to your question, Helen, as to can we wait to make the decision, the answer is no, because if we wait, then we're into the 193,000 because it's too late. It's past we're into the winter at that point, based on the timeline. So just as to whether we can wait, we have to make a decision tonight, essentially.
Now, how much did we invest up front on the schematic design when we were taking the risk?
So
Was it
right
like
now, it's $410,000 that was done in 2014.
Yeah,
Plus another 150 that was done in 2015 to further the schematic. So that's a total of $560,000 so far into the project. And so it was 150,000, and we're looking at 185 now.
So we're already putting taxpayer, almost $600,000 of taxpayer money, and this project might not go through.
And that's the process.
And I know that
yeah.
we already agreed to it, hence the reason why I'm being so, have so much trepidation on another 200,000. And that's why I say, can the school have some skin in the game if this was to fail? To say, we're putting the taxpayers' money at risk, can we talk to the school to say, if this doesn't go through, that they are gonna put something into it as well?
70% in.
No,
Well, that's
Really?
taxpayer money too. I mean,
yeah, I understand, but
Helen, I like where you're coming from, because I think that the people out there need to know that this is not an easy decision for us. And, but we're trying to balance it out and see where we end
no,
up.
I agree,
You know.
I just.
But to that specific question, that we won't have an answer tonight before we make a vote. So we can pursue that as an alternative if things don't go well.
But I could abstain on this vote without having that type of feedback.
I guess.
Okay.
So,
Any further questions? Discussion?
do you want me to make the motion?
Sure.
Right. I make the motion that we proceed with this plan for the additional money to be replenished at the December 1st meeting of the town, at the town meeting.
Including reallocating the first week of this effort from the gasoline account.
And the capital outlay reserve account and the FinCom reserve account.
There a second?
second?
Further discussion?
I think we did it already.
We had a lot of discussion. I'm really uncomfortable with this, given that we've already expended $600,000 in good faith towards this.
It's a tough one.
It's, you know, you're talking about adding an extra $200,000 to the cost of the project, to not risk the $885,000 now. But I guess I just think in terms of the dire straits the town's gonna be in if we don't vote for the project. So that, it's not an easy vote.
No, it's not, and I pray to God the vote goes through, but
But I think,
this upfront cost continues to add up, and I just think that we should have a discussion with the school and see.
well,
if we
the
can-
school, but I, you know, not to get into it, Helen, but I mean, the schools, they have their own separate budget.
I understand that.
So that,
I understand, I do.
you know, so that I think as to whether or not they participate in recouping part of the 185,000 is secondary as to whether this is a wise decision or not. Because of, you know, whether they said yes or no, I don't know that that should materially affect the decision that we make as a board tonight. But
Okay.
anyway, so, motion has been made and seconded. There's no further discussion. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, 401.
The next item that I have in front of you is the proposed vote language for the special town meeting and also for the ballot question. What I want to say tonight is that this is in essence a final draft, but your authorization would be subject to any further revisions from town council, bond council, and MSBA council. We have to have the ballot question finalized by this Friday, and the articles need to be done the following week. In summation, Article number 1 is to allocate the $1.9 million from CPA to this project. for the recreation piece. This is the first article. Of that, the CPA would be looking to reallocate the $10,000 from the existing playground, or whatever that final number is, but it's around that dollar amount. Plus, to borrow no more than $1 million to fund this, pledging future CPA funds, and to utilize $973,000 out of existing unrestricted funds. I will say that the $1 million for the bonding is an upset number. We will probably, as this project materializes, borrow less, but that's the upset level. So half is going to be for money that we already have in our account that in essence has been saved to move forward for the right public project. And as I've said previously, without funding, without going in this direction, the taxpayers would be paying 100% of this cost. So that's Article 1. And I guess the last piece with Article 1 is it's still subject to the ballot vote being approved. So if the ballot vote isn't approved, then this article becomes null and void because there is no project. Article 2 is to fund the entire building project of the $49.97 million, which is tied over in the motion on page 3. This would be for constructing the school, dealing with the MSBA reimbursement rate, and this authorizes us to move forward with building the school and spending the money on the school, subject to the ballot vote. So all these are subject to ballot votes. Article number 3 on the last page, need to fill in the detail, but this would be the standard article to reallocate some of the free cash, some of the savings the town has occurred, back into paying off the money that was allocated by your vote tonight. So again, I'll be filling in the detail between now and next week, but it'll be specifically for what we voted on tonight, the $185,000.
So you want these approved subject to necessary revisions and approval by town council?
Town council, bond council, and MSBA council. And then the last item, which is the ballot question, that's obviously for December 12th. This is the debt exclusion authorization. And with this debt exclusion, what we've done here to just be as clear as possible, and again, this is subject to bond council's review, is we've tied this back to Article 2 from the special town meeting. So the debt exclusion, although it says for the school, we've also tried to tie it back to Article 2, which is the $49 million, because that's all we're authorized to spend. So that's what you're looking at for the ballot question. What I learned today, and I always try to learn something new every day, is that, and I don't know how I missed this, but I did, with local initiative ballot questions, when it goes on the ballot compared to state ballot questions, when you get your state ballot question, there's the description of what the thing is. You're not allowed to do that for local one. So that's why we tried to put in here the Article 2 to tie it back into here, but bond council may have an issue to that. It has to be just the wording and nothing else. Even if it's non-biased, you can't write any description into the ballot. Which I think is a little foolish, because I as long as those state ballot questions are, at least I'd like to understand the pros and the cons of it. Here you can't do that.
Okay, so because of that, because I was reading this, and I've got a little bit of problem, someone walking into that ballot box could look at this and misconstrue this for 2.5 override. Just because I would love to see the language in there that says, until said bond, issued bonds have been repaid. And the other problem I have is with that last sentence, all is approved under Article 2 of the December 1st, 2015 special town meeting. Is there any way that can just be all as voted? Because we have no idea if it's going to be approved. And I don't want to go ahead and have a ballot written up assuming that it's going to be approved by town meeting. I think that's kind of a slap in the face. Saying, well, you don't need to show up because it's already been voted. Where we have to get people to town meeting to vote for it, so, and I don't want to just assume that it's going to pass town meeting.
They may legally have to say that.
Well, that's
why we
what,
have-
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
council.
I will ask those questions.
Well, thank you.
But I will tell you that I was on, been, as little as these words are, they're very complicated because Wall Street in essence has to review them too to make sure that all the wording's proper, that the bonds are gonna be paid back. I will ask those two questions. I will say that, I don't know if it can be changed. I understand your intent, and we'll have to talk about that through the public forums and what that is, but the legal language on here is pretty tight, but I will ask the question, and if it can be done, I'll have them do it.
My biggest problem is that last sentence, just the fact that we're assuming that it's going to, you know, the way the ballot question is asked, it assumes that it gets voted, you know, approved at town meeting, and I just kind of have a problem with that.
Yeah.
If we have to do it you know, because the lawyers told us to, well, there's not much I can do about that, but, you know,
Well, I mean,
I
one
have the concern.
scenario that was looked at is putting a period after the word project, and leaving off the last part of that phrase. But because we can't write a description into the ballot, I didn't want someone to say, well, what is this to approve? Well, it's to approve the school vote. Well, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say specifically how much. We can't put in the dollar amount because we don't know what the interest rate's gonna be when we have to come back and borrow those.
We also don't know what the final bids are gonna come in as.
Correct, and in the effort we're moving forward, we're reducing costs from that $49 million, and we may only need $49.2 million or $48.7 million. I mean, we're trying to reduce that down. And so again, that last phrase was to try to tie it back into Article 2, which had the number in it.
Well, I think you might consider language such as presented in Article 2, which doesn't imply whether it was voted up or down, but just.
Yeah,
to
that would
point.
suffice.
I have a question. In the past, when we've had ballot questions, you have the ballot question, and then off to the side, you have this little explanation that's not part of the official. Can we do that?
We can have a limited number of information things available for people to pick up.
So
Probably no more than 20, but we can't hand them out.
But it can't be on the ballot itself, off to the side.
They'd
Okay.
have to request it or pick it up at the table when they're registered to vote.
So, I mean, I think it might be important to have something there that, like Alan was worried about, that discusses the fact that this is not a 2.5 override. That's a huge.
And again, when we have our forum on December 19th, and so forth, we're gonna have to continue to emphasize that, and I'm sure the paper will, correspond with that appropriately.
You mean
That's
November
what this
19th.
is. November for the forum over at the project. yeah.
But there's no way to include debt exclusion anywhere in,
I know,
In the article?
that's the one I
Yeah.
I will go back and
Drop
and
2.5.
verify if we can, we'll add it. But I just don't wanna leave with any false expectations that you can modify this all you want. I don't
I
think
mean,
you
a
have-
debt exclusion is a type of override, but it's
temporary,
but
though.
but it's temporary, so that,
Because this,
anyway, yeah, you understand our points, and,
And I think what they're gonna come back to is it actually does say that, it's for the amounts required to pay the bonds issued in order to construct this project. So once the bonds are paid off, technically, it expires. That's
Yeah, but-
how they read this.
yeah, for those of us
That's
that are
'cause
somewhat
they
laymen on
understand.
this issue, I think,
Right.
yeah.
I was trying to use the KISS principle so that everybody can understand it.
yeah, exactly.
We want it so even Alan understands.
Exactly.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the 3 articles and the ballot question, subject to the necessary legal changes and revisions that have been discussed?
Is it okay for us to do that? It's not
Yeah.
on the agenda?
It was on the
It
agenda.
is on the agenda.
Where
My,
is
my
that?
only concern about voting in the group,
Oh, sorry.
Ron, is Article 3, I need to abstain on, because I abstained on the original vote, because Article 3 relates to the vote we had just taken, so I'll need to abstain.
All right, well, we'll take them by,
Make a motion that we accept, vote on Article 1.
Second.
further discussion. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Make a motion that we consider Article 2.
Second.
Vote in favor of? Support? Article 2?
Support Article.
Okay, you said consider.
Well, yeah, okay.
I just,
No, It's getting late.
it's vague.
I'm an old guy.
And these
Motion made and
motions are
second.
subject to the legal reviews.
To approve Article 2. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Article 3. Motion.
Make a motion that we accept Article 3.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and with one abstention, correct? Helen, you abstaining on
Yeah, I
that vote?
just, yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion that we accept the wording, providing any additions or omissions that would be legal
For
to the ballot question.
All right, have a second?
Second. Oops.
I want you to do the other two.
Further discussion? There being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it.
And Mr. Chairman, can I just give one update again on the, some of the finance questions that came out of the, school building committee last night? As we've gone through the analysis of this project, as I mentioned, the renovation project would have been $67 million. This is a $49 million project, and I do believe this is the best that we can deliver to the residents of Carver. That being said, that the average tax bill for the average single-family home valued at $259,000 will be $359 per year. What was mentioned last night by a person from resident was that that's less than $1 a day that we're looking for the average single family. Now with that, those numbers do not include the vote that the selectmen made at a previous meeting to reduce the cost of the project by allocating the solar projects to this. So by doing that, our debt service is $1.7 million for this. That would put us down to a $1.6 million debt service. That's a 6% savings. So we were less than $1 a day. Now we're going to be, 6% less of that. And I believe that giving some of the strong financial improvements the town has made, that we should hopefully increase our bond rating and get a very positive outlook from Wall Street. And I believe that there are some additional cost savings that we may have with a goal that we could easily be at 90 cents a day when this is all said and done. So there are opportunities for continuing to move the price down. I think this opportunity of avoiding a cost escalation for winter months is a way of doing that. And if we don't need to spend it, then we don't need to borrow it, and we don't need to pay it back.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just as we go forward and we're trying to, when we bring this project to the town and, point out the benefits and the cost benefits, I would really hope that we will avoid using terms like, and no offense, Michael, but, $1 a day, because for some people, $1 a day is hard.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to avoid those kind of terms. I know it really bothered a lot of people the last time. Said, well, it's only a cup of coffee a day. And that's not the way to go about, presenting our case. So I just ask that we be sensitive to, the fixed people with fixed incomes that are going through hard times, that, we're asking them to make a sacrifice. I think it's a valuable one. I think we have to make, but we have to be sympathetic and sensitive to that population.
And again, the valuation for the average manufactured parcel or home is $42.19, and that is already going to be 6% lower than that
Is that per year?
per year.
Great, John.
And as we get to the out years, once capital stabilization is fully funded to where our financial policy said, does not say that we might be able to use more of the solar energy money, or as new projects come online, there may be an opportunity to help, the taxpayers even more. Right now, I think it's a great start with the 100,000, but, as we get into years, maybe 10, 11, 12, there may be more funding available to us, or if the state goes ahead and, improves the Chapter 70 funding, we may be able to use monies that we'd have to devote to one thing to helping offset the cost for the taxpayer.
You know, it's one of the things that came up with MSBA is that we're the first community that's looked at how do we reduce our burden down by utilizing the CPA funds, where that we actually get a state match to that. So again, that would have been 100% on the community. We're getting state match for the CPA stuff. I can also tell you we're the first community that's ever tied a solar project into reducing down the debt service, which is 6%. So I continue to go back to $67 million project for a renovation project versus $49 million for a project that's already 6% lower.
The other thing I'd mentioned, I got into a discussion with someone the other day about this is based on the assessed value of your home, as in the assessor's rolls, not what your market value might be. And I think some people were thinking, well, I just bought my home for $400,000 or $500,000 or whatever it might be. It's what it's assessed for, and I know I just took a look and I was surprised that there's a substantive difference between what we're assessed for versus what the market value is. So people need to just make sure when they're calculating the impact that it's based on what their assessment says, not what they think that their market value might be. Okay, can we move on now? I think I see a cup of coffee coming tonight. All right,
Get up at 4:30.
minutes of October 20th. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to accept.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Lisa Rowe, who's been a longtime member of the Area 58, prior to that was known as CCAT, Cable Board of Directors, had to unfortunately resign because she's working on a doctorate. And so I'd like to propose that Daniel Ginnity of 46 Bow Street be appointed to complete her term through the end of this year.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? And then just continuing on, the appointment of Daniel Ginnity, 46 Bow Street, to a 3-year term effective 1/1/16 to 12/31/18.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. A 1-day special license to the Carver Public Library on 12/8/15 from 6 to 9 p.m. This is a holiday paint night. It'll be Tuesday, December 8th, 6 to 9 p.m. 25 people expected to attend. They will be providing wines and malt beverages, which I believe is another way of saying wine and beer.
So
I
it's
move to
a
approve.
public building, is that?
Isn't it a
acceptable?
library-sponsored event? That's what it looked like to me, so it's...
Name of licensee is the Carver Public Library.
Yeah, it's not a yeah, but Carol Julius's name is on there.
Yes.
So it's not a private event, was my point.
No, it's a library-sponsored event.
Yeah, I think the only thing we need to check on there is where there is,
Building, that's my only.
Yeah.
well, we need to make sure that there's coverage for alcohol, because I don't believe it's part of our basic insurance package to cover
Liability
that. So,
insurance.
Michael, if you could check with Maya to find out whether we can get a 1-day alcoholic license for a town function, please. So if someone wants to approve it subject to that,
I approve it subject to...
we can approve it, we can approve the paint night,
Right.
but the alcohol will have to be subject to making sure that we have insurance coverage.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We move on now to
Fishing derby.
the application for a fishing derby at Sampson's Pond, Bass Addicts, on June 4th, 2016, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. If there is nothing further to come before the board, we need to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining negotiations with unions and for non-union negotiations and with all non-union personnel not under contract, and strategy for litigation and for purchase, exchange, sale, lease, or value of real estate that may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town if held in open session, and to reconvene in open session. Someone want to make that motion? There a second?
Second.
We need a roll call vote.
Alan Dunham says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Ron Clark says aye.
Dick Ward says aye.
How does Helen Maroney vote?
Helen says aye.
That's the end of our meeting this evening. We'll reopen just to close. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.